Hello and welcome to Gaston Spotlight. My name is Jacob Brindle, and today I'm joined by our guest, the Gaston Rhinos' newest basketball head coach, Coach Benny Moss. Benny Moss, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you guys having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Just to start us off, the history, as a former player myself, you have to have that passion, that drive to do what you do, to play a sport, to coach a sport. You have to have that motivation. So for you, as a player, what was that motivation to pick up that basketball?
Well, my motivation started at a very young age. I was the youngest of two sons, so I had an older brother, and if I wanted to play and do things, I had to play against the older kids, and got beat up quite a few times, not literally, but beat up a few times on the court and on the fields and that type stuff with my brother who's older and his friends, and just started playing at a young age, Little League rec basketball at age 6, and just moved on and on and on, and went through high school and was an all-state basketball player here in the state of North Carolina. Played at East Surrey High School up in Surrey County, just north of Winston-Salem. Was able to sign a Division I scholarship to play at UNC Charlotte. I did that from 88 to 92. Played there, was very fortunate. I was on the all-freshman team in the Sun Belt my freshman year. As would have it, I had a ton of injuries throughout the course of my next 3 years. And with those injuries at that level, people are able to practice, you're not, and you kind of get moved to the side. And so I finished my last year at a small school called Pfeiffer College just outside of Charlotte, where I played for Bobby Lutz and later coached for him. But basketball's always been my passion, and I grew up playing all the sports, but by the time I got to high school, basketball is what I knew I wanted to do, and that's what I chose to do from that point on as a player.
I love that. That's the passion that basketball teams need, especially this Gaston Rhino squad. They need somebody that loves the game of basketball and loves the people that he's around, and that's something that we've saw this past weekend, Saturday, covering the practice you guys did as the SMT program. You talked about Mr. Lutz as a coach, when you played under him as a coach, when you coached beside him. So how important is a good coach to a team?
Oh, I think it's very important. I have a philosophy in recruiting young men and in practice and in games. I talk to my point guard in particular, and I tell my point guards, I'm like, there are two guys in the program who cannot have a bad day, and that's the head coach and the point guard. And but the head coach is extremely important. And I was very fortunate to play for good coaches. I had a great high school coach in Mike Burge, and I played for Jeff Mullins at UNC Charlotte, and then Bobby Lutz at Pfeiffer, and then was able to go on and work for him. And he got me in the business, Coach Lutz. The story is, when I finished my playing career that last year at Pfeiffer, I was planning to go play overseas. I was still going to be a player. I was going to go to Germany and play, and as would have it, that summer I had another injury. Had a knee injury, had to have knee surgery. I was already a year into my master's, and so he asked me to come back and be a graduate assistant. So I came back and finished my MBA, got my master's of business administration, and got into coaching. The whole philosophy was going to be, when the injury was healed and I could start practicing in about January, I was going to get back in shape and go overseas and play basketball.
Yeah.
But as would have it, I fell in love with the coaching aspect. And at the end of that year, there was actually a full-time opening on the staff at Pfeiffer, and I guess I had done a pretty good job as a GA. And so he had actually asked me to, instead of going overseas to play, to stick around and be the full-time assistant at Pfeiffer. And here we are. I've got 31 years of experience since that moment, and had a lot of success in that. Started at an NAI school like Pfeiffer, went to Oklahoma to an NAI school, then I was Division II in Arkansas, and then fortunately for me, Bobby Lutz then became the head coach at UNC Charlotte. And when he became the head coach at UNC Charlotte, he asked me to come back, and I was able to go back to my alma mater where I got my undergraduate degree and work for the guy who I finished my playing career with and started my coaching career with, and coached with him at Charlotte, and kind of the rest is history. He's my mentor. He's my guy. We were there together for 6 years. We went to 4 NCAA tournaments and 1 NIT tournament during those 6 years. We had such success, I was able to become the head coach at UNC Wilmington. So I've got 2 different schools I was able to be the head coach at, UNC Wilmington, and in this past season, I was the interim head coach at Coastal Carolina. Throw in the middle of that, after Wilmington, thought I may want to do the NBA thing for a second. And worked for a guy named Jim Klibanoff, who is now the vice president and director of scouting for the Denver Nuggets. And at the time, he was in Philadelphia, and I was able to work for him as a scout for a year. And really, that year before I went to Coastal Carolina, doing that scouting made me realize why I got into the business. And the reason I got into the business was to help young men. And when I was scouting, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't going into living rooms with parents and promising I was going to look out for their son. I wasn't helping anyone. I wasn't helping a young man be the best person he could be, the best student he could be, and the best basketball player he could be. So I knew really quick into that year of scouting, it was fun at first, but I knew it wasn't for me. So then I was able to go to Coastal Carolina and be there for 13 years. Very fortunate to be there for 13 years. And then, as would have it, Coach Ellis retired and different things. And then this opportunity presented itself, and thought this was just the perfect opportunity at the perfect time for me in my life.
So all this on your resume, those years of coaching, those conference championships, those national tournament appearances, all comes to Gaston College here in Gaston County, North Carolina. So what specifically leads you here? Why here?
Yeah, I've been asked that question a lot. As over my 31 years, I've won 9 conference championships and gone to 13 national tournaments. And when things ended at Coastal Carolina, I was at the Final Four. And I had been talking to Coach Doty, who's the athletic director and baseball coach here. And then I had talked to Dr. Hooser as well. And then Bobby Lutz knew both those guys as well. And Dr. Hooser, as a leader, that was where it started. He's a Surrey County guy like myself. He's from the Mount Airy area. I'm from the Pilot Mountain area, but we grew up, we kind of run in the same circles. We know some of the same people. Coach Doty was at UNCW as a baseball assistant when I was there. Then he worked for Lauren Hibbs, who's one of my best friends, as the baseball coach at Charlotte. But talking to those guys, and then at the Final Four, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at all these freshmen, and I'm looking at these freshmen in the country that are being overlooked because the landscape of college basketball has changed with the transfer portal and the NIL, and there was just so many guys that were out there that were not only just good players, but they were good people, they were good students who were being overlooked because of the transfer portal. Everybody wanted an older player, someone with more experience. And I'm actually at the Final Four. My son's with me, who's also in coaching. And while there, over a 2-day period, I basically helped 4 of my former players from Coastal Carolina get on to other Division I schools. Esam Mustafa went to Middle Tennessee State. Kylan Blackman goes to UNC Charlotte now. Jacob Meyer, he is at DePaul now. And just the list went on and on. And I'm sitting there, and my son is just like, you talk about the portal, you talk about helping kids. I just watched you get 4 kids Division I scholarships. And why don't you go to Gaston? And it kind of resonated. It kind of hit me. And I go back to the year of scouting. And that was the year that I had the epiphany that this is what I was meant to do. I'm meant to help young men. And so with the landscape of the game, this is the perfect opportunity at the perfect time. And we've got a really good group of guys. And they're not only good basketball players, but they're also good students and good people. And we've had the very good fortune of having a lot of schools respect what we've done this early in the recruiting process. We've had about 18 Division I schools come in and watch practice already, and about 18 to 20 other schools, Division IIs, Division IIIs, that have seen us as well. So we're trying to get these guys in front of the right people and to move them on to not just play at Gaston and be a good player and a good student here, but to get their education paid for at the next level and get a 4-year degree. Use basketball to get your degree. Don't let basketball use you. And that's the philosophy I have.
And those guys that we spoke to that past weekend, they love that style that you have. They love that you care about them. They love your style. And I love that personally interviewing you today. That is so passionate of you, the game of basketball, the people you're around. When you watched Gaston College, before you came in here as a coach, you had to see some things you liked and you didn't like on the film. So talk to us about that, what you liked and didn't like when you watched Gaston College.
Well, absolutely. When I took the job, I watched a bunch of video. And I watched the guys that we wound up bringing back. We've got a good sophomore group coming back, from Tyheem Love to Judah Ravenel to Cush Carter and Jalen as well. And the thing, I'm not quick to speak. I like to watch. I like to observe. And I listen to people. I listen to Dr. Hooser. I listen to Coach Doty. I listen to Al Shuford, the trainer. I listened to Miss Katrina Conley, who is the game day management. And I talked to the 2 assistant coaches, Jermaine Williams and Bland Hodges, who are doing a great job for me. And I'm very happy that they're still here with me. But those were the 4 guys that, Coach, these guys can help you continue to build what I think you want to build. And so I sat there and I watched, and I talked to those guys, and those were guys that got good reviews from everybody I talked to on campus. They had a good amount of talent. There were things that they needed to work on, but we all have things we need to work on to become a more complete player. But again, in this profession, I've gotten to know this region as well, Region 10 in junior college basketball. And it's a region that has gotten better and better as the years have gone by. And so, again, being a North Carolina guy from the Winston-Salem, Pilot Mountain's my hometown, playing at Charlotte, working at Charlotte, it's kind of a chance to, I was on the coast for several years at Wilmington and Coastal Carolina, but this is kind of became a second home, from my playing days to my coaching days at both Pfeiffer and at Charlotte. And, it's just an area that I was comfortable living in that area. And when you talk about programs, you got to look at administration. And then, from talking to Dr. Hooser and his vision, and talking to Sean Doty and his vision, it just became evident that this was the right place and it was the right time. And I'm very excited to be here. And it's good to hear that through the interviews the guys are excited, because, one thing as a coach you have to do, I've learned this over my 31 years. Guys don't care what you know until they know that you care about them. Once they know you care about them, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Coach Moss really knows what he's talking about. And but if you don't develop that relationship, and you don't get that coach player good camaraderie, they're really not going to listen to you regardless of what you know. And so we've had a really good preseason in which we've really gotten to know each other and respect each other. And the guys are working extremely hard, and we're excited for a really good year this year.
And you talked about how the team is going to respect you and how you respect them as players. Team chemistry, like we talked about on this past weekend when the SMT program got to cover all of the yellow versus blue team practice. How important is team chemistry going to be coming into this season?
It's tremendous, because, the thing I've learned in a long career is the best teams are the player-led teams, and the guys really need to like each other. They need to like being around each other. And there is a mutual respect for how hard each one works. Now, if you go out there and you don't work hard, you go out there and you're not doing the right things, that's when there becomes an outlier, and that you're only as strong as your weakest link. And so we're trying to bring everybody into the fold and get everybody on the same page, and we've done a really good job of that. But as coaches, we can teach, we can coach, and we can lead. But it's been my experience that the best teams are the teams that are player-led also. Yes, the coach does his job and does those things, but we as players, we hold each other accountable, because we have a relationship, we have a mutual respect for each other as players, and the work ethic and the things that we've been working hard to do in the preseason and the off season. And this group has really bought in. And we've still got a lot to work on. But as far as team chemistry and approach, they're working hard, they're working together, and they've bought into each other, which is the biggest key.
And who are some of those leaders, those player-led guys that are going to lead this team to the next step, to hoisting some hardware?
Yep. Well, we did take a sophomore transfer in Jordan Brown. He was a kid that played in Alabama JUCO last year and had a really good year, averaged double figures. At Shelton State, was a good player, but he has really came in, and not only is he a good player, but he's a good leader. And not saying as a point guard, your point guard, as I said, he can't have a bad day, just like the head coach can't have a bad day. And Jordan does a phenomenal job of bringing it every single day, with his effort, but also with his leadership. He's always one of the first ones in the gym. He's always prepared. By the time the whistle blows for us to start practice, I know he's ready to go. And all these coaches that have came in, from a recruiting standpoint, that's one of the things they talk about, is you've got a great leader and a point guard right there. And then I will tell you as well, a couple of the returners, because sophomores need to be your leaders because they've got at least a year of experience under the belt. Yeah. And I've been very pleased, with Taheem Love and Judah Ravenel with how they have approached this. With their intensity, their effort, but also their leadership and holding their teammates accountable. And I'll throw Cush Carter into that mix too as a sophomore. Just unfortunately for Cush, he's had some injuries here in the offseason and this preseason and hasn't practiced in the last week or so. But when he has been out there, he's done a great job of that as well. But that sophomore group has done a very good job of that because we've got some very talented freshmen. But those freshmen need to be brought along and need to understand how things work at this level. And those sophomores have really done a good job of instilling that in them.
And on this Rhino squad, there's a whole bunch of local players. Talk about some of those guys and what they mean to this squad.
Absolutely. You got Judah, who I just talked about as a sophomore, is a Charlotte guy, has done a tremendous job. He was one of the guys when I watched the tape. I challenged him. I said, look, I sit here and watch a lot of tape. You come into the game early in the game and you make a couple of threes. But then it looks like you weren't in good enough shape. You didn't run the floor. You got tired. Your legs left, and you weren't as good a shooter late in the game. And he's really bought into the weights and the conditioning aspect of it. He's a local guy. Ryan Evans is a kid from Charlotte, a freshman, 6'6", can really shoot the basketball, but does more than shoot the basketball. He's sneaky athletic, can drive it and do some things there. Cush, the sophomore, he's from the Charlotte area also. We're hoping his knee does better and we can get him back out there soon. And then we've got other North Carolina kids. Caleb Coles is from the eastern part of the state over in Goldsboro, who had a very good standout high school career at Wayne Country Day. And then Kyrie McAllister is a Charlotte kid, big kid, 6'9", about 220. When the light truly switches on, he's got a chance to be really good. But he's a freshman and he's a big, so it for some guys it takes a little bit longer. But he's out there, he's working, he's trying, and we're going to continue to coach and bring him along. And then those are the local guys. But we've done a good job of getting some other guys. Spencer Breeden is a very good freshman. He was one of the top 4 scorers in all of Kentucky high school basketball last year. He's off to a good start. You've got Robert Watson, or J.R. Watson from Charleston, who had a great high school career. E.J. Joyner, signed a Division I scholarship early last year with Hampton University. With a coaching change, wound up being available to us, and so we're happy to have him as well, and and the list goes on and on. Taheem from Virginia, Jozon Price, going back to the locals, he's been a find for us. He's 6'10", super, not just talented. He is very talented, but he's a super young man. 4.0 student out of high school, high IQ on the basketball court. He's plays super hard, very skilled, can play inside, can play out, and he's kind of been the really big surprise. And he's a Charlotte kid, but he played at the Christ School up in Arden, North Carolina, at the boarding school just outside of Asheville. But another in-state kid who we have very, very high expectations from.
And I love that these local guys are going to make a difference. These sophomore leaders, these freshmen coming in, watching Kyrie McAllister. He's so athletic. He's so shifty when he gets in the paint. We talked about that on commentary. And just the whole atmosphere of Gaston basketball. You guys play in the Ashbrook Gymnasium. I don't know if you're in the conversation or not, but there are talks of a Gaston College gym. So what are your thoughts on Gaston College getting their own gym?
Well, that was one of the things, again, when you talk about Dr. Hoozer's vision. And, there are plans for an arena down behind DBC, David Belk Cannon, and we're hopeful that we'll have it here in a couple of years. Obviously it takes time when you do stuff like that. There's funding, but there's also state funding. So obviously there's going to be bid outs with state money involved, but we're very excited about that because I do believe we'll have our own building in a couple of years, which I think could help this program take the next step. I've been very pleased with where these guys are without a gym. We practice at the church and we play at Ashbrook, and doesn't mean anything. Those guys are excited to be here and excited to represent the Gaston Rhinos, and I'm excited about this year. And if we get a gym in the next couple of years, it'll be phenomenal, and I think we could take even the next step.
And just having that gym, having the atmosphere, the fans, just boost the confidence of the players. Last season in the Region 10, 30-point loss to Catawba Community Valley College. Offense was an issue. Tell me the fixes. What's going to go into the fix this season to put W's on the board?
Well, from an offensive standpoint, we want to play fast, but we don't want to be in a hurry. I'd love to score a lot of points. I was an offensive guy. I made a lot of shots as a college player, scored a lot of points as a college player. We do want to push the ball. We want to push. We'd like to score in the first 4 seconds if we can. And because if we miss in the first 4 seconds, as long as it's a good shot, we should get better rebounding because we're not 5-on-5 in the half court where guys can box us out. And I think we've got a good group of shooters. We've got a good group of athletes that can push it, and then we've got good frontline guys that have length and athleticism to get the offensive rebounds. But the biggest keys, and it's pretty simple. We want to play fast but not in a hurry. If we don't score in the first 4 seconds, our philosophy is change sides of the floor. Touch the paint, let the defense make the mistake. I think you'll find in this game of basketball, sometimes we overcomplicate things. Defenses are pretty good when they're lined up against you. But if you move them from side to side, their help side's not quite as good. Their shell defense is not quite as good. And if you touch the paint and play from inside out, whether it be by dribble penetration or throwing it into one of the big guys, it collapses the defense. You get kickouts, you get them in scramble outs, and then good things are going to happen. And then the other key is to win the possessions game. How do you win the possessions game? How do you get more possessions than your opponent? Number one, you get more offensive rebounds than your opponent. If we get on the glass and then we do our job defensively and keep them off the glass, we should get more possessions in a game. The other way to do it is keep the turnovers down. And I was very pleased, with you guys coming out. Thank you guys so much for that again, coming out to the inter-squad scrimmage. And one thing I thought we did a very good job of was taking care of the ball. Between the two teams, I think we had 32 assists and only 14 turnovers, which is tremendous, because that's when you're going to win games. Is when you take care of the ball, you get more possessions because you turn them over more than you turn it over. You get more offensive rebounds than they do. So from the offensive side of things, that's kind of it. But then there becomes the defensive side. When it comes to defense does win championships. And the thing I like about this group, I think we've got quite a few guys who are at the point of attack on the perimeter, between Jordan Brown, E.J. Joyner, J.R. Watson. They can really pressure the ball at the point guard position, which establishes our defense. We want good ball pressure. We do want to force turnovers. We want to be active with our hands. We want to be able to keep people in front. We want to be able to guard our yard, so to speak. That's a quote, guard your yard. And, and then when the shot does go up, we don't want any uncontested shots. We want to make the other team earn it. And then when the shot goes up, we want to be fundamentally sound and hit somebody and box and make sure they only get one shot at it. And if you combine those two things with depth, and that's the thing I like, this team has depth. I think we could hopefully wear some people down because we don't need to play guys 35 minutes. I think we've got enough guys that we can keep fresh bodies in and continue to pressure both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball.
And we talk about everything on the court, but obviously your goal as a coach is to make these people better men. Mm-hmm. So what are your plans to do off the court for the community of Gastonia and the Dallas area?
Well, first and foremost, we have to represent this institution in the community. Any chance we get to do community service, we're going to do. And whether it be participating in Moe's Pantry, helping with that. Whether it be, we did this. We were out here before 7 a.m. For the 5K color run. And, we were here. We helped with check-in. We introduced ourselves because, again, it's about fans. And if this community's here running in the 5K color run, we want them to think good things about the basketball program because we do have good guys. And they were here. They introduced themselves to people. They talked to people. They went out on the course. They directed traffic. And then they just had fun. They had fun. They were throwing the different colors on the runners and things like that. And, I don't know if you've seen social media, but the pictures, our guys, they were as colorful as any of the runners that they threw the stuff on. And so they just had fun with it. And, and so any opportunity we get, we're going to do things like that because that's our goal, is to give back to the community. We're fortunate enough to be here playing basketball in Dallas, in Gastonia at Ashbrook High School, and so our job is to give back to the community. We're gonna do camps. We've already talked. We had an issue at the church. We broke a backboard in one of our early preseason workouts, so we had to go to the Irwin Center. And but we've already talked to the church. We're gonna do basketball camps at the First United Methodist Church for the youth. When we went to the Irwin Center, we committed to them that with their little leagues, we're gonna do basketball camps in the off season. Now we've got the new floor, the new stuff at the original Dallas gym here in town. We've already talked to the Dallas Parks and Rec. We're going to do basketball camps for the kids in Dallas. So we're going to do them for the church. We're going to do them for Gastonia. We're going to do them for Dallas. And then we're going to do things like we did for the 5K color run. We're going to be present. We're going to show up. We're going to let people know who we are, and hopefully in return, we'll get some more fans to our games as well.
Of course. And what you do off the court and on the court, it's going to come up for a successful season. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining me, Coach Moss.
Thank you.
If you want to learn more about what we do, can you guys roll the teleprompter? I guess we're going to run that back over. Thank you for joining me today, Coach Moss. If you want to learn more about what we do here, you can check us out on Instagram at Gaston Broadcast. My name is Jacob Brindle, and thank you for watching Gaston Spotlight.